we'll be talking about Chapter 8, Organizing Your Speech, and this is just mainly concerning your introduction, body, and conclusion. So the basic steps here that we're going over are steps 6 and 7. 6 is determining how best to organize your main points, and then step 7 is planning your introduction and conclusion. And remember, you always plan your introduction and conclusion as one of the very last things you do before you present your speech. So for your organization, you're going to select a pattern, and we discussed this probably a few weeks ago in class. So you'll have topical pattern, there's chronological, geographic, and causal. You won't need to know a lot of this. I don't think anything covers this on the final exam, but it's just good to know for future speeches that you're preparing. Now, something that's really important, especially when you have a captive audience like this one, is to highlight your main points using signposts, internal summaries, transitions, and repetition. I know people don't really particularly like repetition, but in a speech like this, it's really easy, or it's really important to keep your audience on track. So use that repetition purposefully. As far as signposts and transitions go, these are kind of road signs for your speech. Signposts are pretty brief. They're words like next, finally, in addition. Transitions might be things like, now that I've told you about the history of New York, let me tell you about the things every tourist should do while in New York. So it's a lot clearer, but it's still leading the audience throughout your speech. And then repetition helps listeners remember ideas, and it helps them to understand that there are significant points in your speech. So that's why all these things are important. It also makes your main points more memorable. Now moving on to your introduction and conclusion, keep in mind that when you do your introduction, you need to begin with an attention getter. You have so many different options when it comes to this. You can use a detailed instance, humor, quotation, startling fact, a question, a rhyme, I think we said a quote already, or a demonstration. Step 2 is to be sure that you motivate your audience, and I always tell you guys about that for your thesis statement. Tell us what you're going to talk about, and then give us a reason to listen to you. So motivate your audience. Give them a reason to listen during or after you've opened with impact. That's really important there in the opening, and that will be on one of your quizzes. Maybe you'll give them, you'll help them learn something new, you'll save them time, they can earn more money, or they'll have the skills now to be a more healthier person. So give them something like that. Step 3, establish credibility and rapport. Be sure to present yourself and your information in a way that will make the audience respect you and like you. So make sure that right off the bat you are establishing credibility. There's a video I was going to show you guys, maybe I'll show it next time. It was from The Big Bang Theory, and there's a speech where Sheldon is just insulting his audience while he gives a speech. That is a horrible, horrible way to establish credibility and rapport. So some little things to keep in mind. I'm sure you guys will never just completely insult your speech, but something to keep in mind, don't be offensive. Step 4, present your thesis statement. That's going to be right after you do that open with impact. It should include your purpose as well as the incentive for them to listen. So your thesis statement might sound something like, today I'm going to tell you how to do a magic trick, and by the end of my speech, you'll be able to impress your friends at the next social event. Immediately after your thesis statement, that's when you go into your preview, and you preview those 3 main points for the first time. Then for your conclusion, this is where you summarize your main ideas, and I always give you guys the option of just restating 3 important facts from your speech if you'd rather do that. And lastly, you're going to refocus the audience attention by referring back to the opening of your speech and closing with impact very concisely. One last little note here is the primacy and recency effect is just something to be aware of. This is why you have to be sure that your beginning and your opening are really impactful, because those tend to be the parts that people remember the most. So keep that in mind. That's why it's so important to have a very clear, solid, open with impact and conclusion. That is it for Chapter 8. The next time we'll go over Chapter 9.